It's quite a space to work in healthcare. I would love to be able to offer havening to healthcare workers because a lot of the time we do have these real singular moments.
We've had young midwives who've seen, some pretty traumatic events, and through literally one session of havening, they've gone back into the roles that they love and continue to serve our societies. Today, I'm super thrilled to introduce Jo, a certified havening practitioner with a nursing background and her own personal healing journey. Jo discovered havening. Please join me in welcoming Jo.
Thank you. So I think I kind of started on my journey of a bit of self-growth when I first came into parenting and found lots of struggles. All my family live overseas, so didn't have family support. And just was wanting to be a new version of myself, parent in a different way to how I was parented. So I did some parenting courses, which helped. But there were still times where I felt triggered in certain situations. So I would probably have a version of my own tantrum when things were not going as I wanted them with the children. And then eventually I went into therapy. Even though I was having the therapy, my therapist did notice that I was still getting stuck in like a trauma loop. So we would talk about what was happening, think about strategies in the moment, but when the moment came, the emotions flared. So no matter how much knowledge or reflection I had, I couldn't stop that emotional reaction. That's when she suggested that I try havening. So at this point, I'm kind of open to absolutely everything. So I was like, yep, sure, give it a go. And I was so blown away by the difference in how I was able to have space to respond to my children's needs without being triggered. As soon as I had that after one session, I was like, I need to know more. I need to do more. Yeah, there's definitely, I even think with my girls who are like 7 and 8, they talk about therapy, and it's something that it's like, oh, well, I want it. My friend has it, I need to understand my emotions more. I need to learn to regulate. And they'll actually list, I struggle with bedtime, that's what, and I was like, it's a beautiful thing to see, because actually it really helps you to stop, look at things from a different perspective, and learn that you're actually not responsible for all of those things, that actually the world is this constantly evolving, growing thing, and we don't actually have to take all that on. And because they're two girls, it makes me really proud for them to be really flipping their way of thinking. It's like, this is more a you problem than a me problem if they're in those difficult scenarios, and actually knowing themselves and their bodies and about what is and isn't okay for them.
That's so cool, and that's totally Heart Place Hospital's ethos is accessible wellbeing for everybody.
Yeah, and it's quite fascinating, like how your body and mind are so interlinked. I'd been nursing for sort of 16 years and had moved into like a project management space. So I'd lost that connection with people through work. And then suddenly I was provided a way of giving care to others, which really lent to my core values. It's quite a space to work in healthcare, and I would love to be able to offer havening to healthcare workers, because a lot of the time we do have these real singular moments, and there is a lot of improvement from when I was nursing around debriefing and support within the workforce. Sometimes these things get you and you just don't realize until something comes along in the future where you're like, oh, I'm actually really anxious now in this scenario. This particular patient is presenting in this way and it now makes me feel nervous. The differences you can make, especially in sort of mental health settings, especially in those high acuity, if staff are assaulted, the impact of that when they have to return to work, havening would be great in that space as well.
And I was just thinking, when you were saying that, is around the vicarious trauma that frontline workers in health and education and in family systems actually build up and don't realize. I know in society we call it burnout. I see it as this, rather than a malfunction, as a message.
I feel that if something had just been done in that little moment, I would potentially still be working as a nurse. I think because the way we care now, especially from a nursing perspective, is it's so task focused. Whereas back when I first qualified, there was time to talk to a patient, to alleviate their fears, to take some time to answer questions. That's not classed as a nursing task anymore. I think I still have trauma from the hospital. I went to update my pass card and I walked in because my office is now off site. I walked in just to go to security and I felt it immediately. And I was like, oh, I actually still have a lot inside me from this place.
You've got the parenting expertise, you've got the nursing expertise, you've lived through pandemics and worked through pandemic expertise. So uh,
Mm.
yeah, and we don't want to lose that.
It's the power of permission to care for yourself, isn't it? And that actually to understand you can stop and pause in this moment. I think we've been going through a time where we just push, push, push. And now we've got to relearn how do we stop. Haven is quite a new technique as well. So it's still kind of at the forefront of kind of going through that research. And I think sometimes if you're a little bit on the fence, it's a good way to get people to understand what it feels like and what it is in that giving it in kind to then be like, because it's very hard to really describe. You can go through the science of it and you can explain how good it was for you, but until you can actually feel that difference, it can be tricky to get that message across in just a small leaflet or
Yeah.
so the touch of havening is rubbing of your hands together like this. So this was all researched around which parts of your body would stimulate your brain to go into delta waves. So these are real slow brain waves, which are normally present during deep sleep and when you're in your most restorative state. The other movement then is down your arms. So not too fast and not too slow, but from the shoulders and down. And so it's almost like giving yourself a bit of a hug. And again, this is the movement that you would commonly do to those friends or loved ones that feel a bit distressed. You would stroke their arms. And then there's around your forehead and then underneath your cheeks or underneath your eyes, I mean. Yeah, yeah. And again, this is what you would do to babies. If babies are crying or really distressed, you would just naturally stroke their faces. So these three locations was where the two doctors in America found had those simulations to be into delta waves. Now, some people find they get a better response from their hands, from their arms. Everyone's unique in that way. Quite good if you're with somebody to find out which one they can feel it, because you can focus on that area to touch. But even as the practitioner, you go into delta waves yourself because you're using your hands to stroke the client. And it just gives you that real sense of calm and actually open to other thoughts because your brain is in its most restorative state. It's at that moment that you can actually have these conversations and look at things from a different perspective because you're so regulated in that moment. And I've had some sessions with a friend and colleague of mine, Joe Egan, um, and we've had some really long havening sessions, and it does feel like I'm so rested at the end of it. So if I've been in delta waves for an hour, you then feel very, very restored. So yeah, so this process then, because of the way memories are stored, so when you have a stressful event occur, your brain is always doing assessments about whether you're at threat or in danger. And if it senses danger, it will then encode that stressful feeling that you got in that moment. So it knows in future, if you come close to that sort of situation again, that electrical message will be sent through your body so that you can become anxious and then remove yourself from that situation and prevent yourself from being at risk. However, a lot of the time, those things are more in the way of your day-to-day living. So, for example, a car accident. If you've had that traumatic experience, you suddenly are too scared to drive a car. So that's when sort of those encoded moments actually limit you continuing your day-to-day life. And with havening, we don't take away the memory stays. So you still have all the facts, we just remove all the emotional link. And it's these delta waves, the slow movement in your nervous system that basically reabsorbs the receptors that allow the message to pass from the brain through to the body. It's almost like an emotional pathway. So even though the event has now passed, your brain has added in a quick fire route to make sure you feel that same anxiety again if it feels that same threat is present. So to remove that, you can't think that away. There needs to be other things in place.
It's blown my mind how fast
Mm.
it works for everybody. So we have quite a selection of Haveners on our service providers, because we know that it's so cool when I get a visitor who's a nurse, and then I can say, well, look, we've got a nurse who's a Havener, so it's an easy referral. Because not only have you got a tool that you can share, but you've also got that lived experience. Through literally one session of havening, they've gone back into the roles that they love and continue to serve our society. So it's so potent. It's so amazing.
Yeah, it's very important, I really think, for the country to see and hear that, really, because that's the reason I left nursing. I was so traumatized when I first moved to New Zealand when we had swine flu. Most people don't know about swine flu. It's so small, but because of the intensive care I worked in, we got the sickest people. They were all very young. There were people that were having emergency C-sections, but the mother wasn't surviving. I was 25, and this was back in 2009. There was no debriefing, no peer support. And on the last day, when the last patient had passed, I got redeployed. They were like, right, the hospital's busy here. You need to go and help. So I got sent away from the team I knew. I was very, very upset by it. I didn't know the area, even though the team were really good in supporting me on that ward. I wasn't where I belonged. And I realized in that moment that I felt so uncared for, so unappreciated, and that what I had actually just been through had not even been vaguely considered, not even one day of actually just trying to get my thoughts back together. And that really started the journey of me trying to find, how do I get out of here? And then when COVID came, so we had the same precautions. We were locked in a room, we had full PPE for 12 hours. And as soon as they started to prep me again for ICU, I was getting panic attacks at work, going, oh my God, I can't do this, I can't do this. So then I moved out of nursing into, I still work at the hospital, but in my project management role, so that I could remove the risk of being pulled back into this traumatic experience.
The story's the same with me. So a PTSD came up for me, and I accessed EAP and talk therapy.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this it?
Yeah.
And and
Yeah.
so rather than complain about it, I did something about it. I created Heart Place Hospital
Which
so
is
that we
awesome.
can
Yeah.
hyper-normalize these cutting-edge modalities. They're all science-based, but
Yeah.
hyper-normalize them so that they're not seemingly so strange. And
Mm.
I think New Zealand's doing a great job. I looked the other. We've got 120 havening practitioners now in New Zealand, and whether every time we do an event, we always have spaces that we in kind. Our service providers are all heart centered, and
Yeah.
so they and it's the ripple effect's huge, because they may in kind a session, but then that visitor will then come back and support them. And then as Heart Plus Hospital, our awareness grows, then we
Mm.
have more opportunity for people to.
It meant a lot to me having it accessible to me when I did AUT, and I kind of actually want to provide that to others, and have that equitable access, that it's not all based on money. But it's something that you can give so that you can have the time to explore it, see if it works for you, see how it feels for you. So yes, that's going to be my New Year gift.
How can people find you?
So my website is www.innerwave.co.nz. So I went with inner wave because I was thinking about the delta waves and how we want to sort of bring that inner wave and how we manage ourselves. I'm also doing my health coach training, so that will be another service that I'll be able to add on.
This is what I talk about, the ripple effect of Heart Place Hospital. You think about our next generation, our babies, they can't survive without a well mum. And that's the
Yeah.
same with our society. We can't survive without a well care force. When we actually do support people to at least get one session that is resonant to them, then we can
Mm.
start helping them value themselves, so that they can start the journey of being supported. Energy is really shifting in the world, and people are, even people who wouldn't consider even stepping outside the line of traditional medicine are getting curious.
You can see their face light up as they talk about the things that they love and enjoy doing. And it's that human connection that I think is really, really important to me. And it was just such a beautiful way to be able to return to that.
We do need the guides and the doulas and the stewards. So we do need people like yourself to sit alongside others and work in partnership with them and meet each other with expertise. Yeah, we're holding on to that brain drain into the country by daring to really reimagine healthcare differently. Exciting to share this, and thank you so much for coming on the Heart Place Hospital podcast and being part of the community of hope.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. Very much appreciated.